Hey VC, what's up? It's me, yours truly. I am back to post a quick video here. This is going to be a video response to a thread that's kind of been going around. Um, and basically, the question was, name five bands or artists whom the VC, tends to really love, but you just can't stand, despise, hate, whatever word you want to kind of put in there. So I've spent the last week or so, the last few days, watching a number of responses that people have done. I think the last one that I saw, I think it was Andy Vinyl's Den. So I made a comment on a number of them. I can't remember who I said what to, but I think Andy Vinyl's Den was the last one that I watched. And I just thought it was a really, really great question. Um, Kind of opened up another side to connecting within the VC. Um, just because with the vast taste that exists in the VC, I'm pretty sure I could, go to the stuff behind me, and 80% of the stuff back there, most of the people in the VC are gonna like it on some level. Black Sabbath, David Bowie, The Clash, Bob Dylan, the whole nine. But one thing I think we don't talk about as much, there's a lot of, like this band or never heard of this band. We discover new things, but I think stuff that we don't like is not something that we share as much. And to me, that's something when it comes to people that I'm close with, especially music wise. I want to know about that stuff just as much as the stuff that you like. 'Cause I think it's just as telling about who you are, musically. It's a really connecting thing for me. So I think that's why I loved watching so many people talk about the bands they hate, especially when it ended up being a band that I really liked. That just made me more interested and more engaged with a person, you know, to discover that they really dislike a band that I love. Um, and I think it was Andy Vinyl's Den. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was his response where he said, I've watched so many of them kind of all together. Um, I think he was the one that said he didn't like Godsmack at all, which of course, you look at my avatar, Godsmack is one of my favorite bands. So it was kind of cool hearing his response and his thoughts on that. And and I kind of put some comments on his video there too, and was just like, no way, man, Godsmack is awesome and blah blah. It's like, no, I just don't get it. And so it's like, to me, it's very fun, very connecting, and very I don't know, it's like a buddy moment. I think that's the way I always kind of feel with that type of interaction. So that was really cool. That really made me want to jump on board and do the thread because of how awesome I thought it was with the people that have done them so far. So, um, and I think one thing too that gets maybe a little bit lost inside of that, because on a few of the videos, one of the things I noticed was a lot of people put a lot of like precursors in there of, this is not saying anything bad about you. This is not, like, being very, very worried that this was going to really, be very negative to people, and that people are going to feel attacked and everything. And, and I think when it comes to music, we really shouldn't have to feel that way. I mean, it really should be no more of a difference between saying you really like strawberry ice cream and somebody else saying they like chocolate ice cream. And because you don't like chocolate, most people wouldn't feel insulted because you don't like chocolate ice cream. You know, like I don't like plain chocolate bars. I don't really like chocolate cake. I prefer, a yellow cake or white cake. I'm not a huge fan of rich chocolate. I don't think anyone who loves chocolate cake would be offended by that. But sometimes when we switch it over to something like music, all of a sudden it's like, oh, we are offended because our, how strong we feel about our band and all that kind of stuff. So, so yeah, again, I just really like the fact that people were doing these videos and we're having having those discussions. And again, it really should be more of a bonding thing to me than worried about whether we're actually upsetting someone. Um, and a kind of a nice thing to kind of joke about, to have a little very, very friendly buddy back and forth banter and that type of thing, because that's passion. That's like, fun. That's connecting. But anyway, let me stop rambling about the psychological aspects of it and just answer the question. Um, so my picks Only number one and number two are in any type of order. Everything else is just random, whatever. So let's just start with the three random ones. Number one, I'll start with an artist I don't have anything by, so I can't show it. Tom Waits. I just, I'm not gonna say I don't get it. I actually kind of love his voice. I like kind of the delivery. I step back and I look at him and I understand and I kind of get what he's doing. But when that music comes in, it triggers nothing in me whatsoever. It's just I don't get any reaction to it. I don't get any emotion from it, or whatever the case may be. So appreciating his uniqueness and what he does and actually feeling it, those things are completely and totally just like they don't connect on any level. So I don't get it. I've listened to a number of his things. When you go to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, they have a video thing where they talk about inductees and they show clips of him and play some of his stuff and you see him perform and everything, and it's just like I don't get Tom Waits. I don't. So, but now I'm always staying open to it. That's one of the things you'll find. It's like I can tell you how much I completely can't stand an artist or stand a genre or something like that, but that in no way ever means that I'm closing that off and I just don't want to deal with it. Forever I will be open to saying that I know there's something that can creep out of that I can end up liking and, boom. So, but Tom Waits would be number one. Second one I'll go to is going to be this artist, which is the Grateful Dead. And of course everyone knows the Grateful Dead. Oddly enough, I didn't even necessarily know I was doing a video today, and I had a dream last night. I went to a Grateful Dead concert with one of my co-workers, and don't ask me what that was about. But yeah, I first discovered the Grateful Dead. Excuse me. Again, I've told you about my history in terms of music and where I grew up and all of that. So the first song I ever heard by the Grateful Dead was "Touch of Grey" in the 80s, back when they had that video that was in regular rotation or whatever else. So that was my first experience, and I do like this album. As I went back, as I got older, to check out, their other catalog, and you also hear about how big the Dead is, I really liked this album. Kind of more on that psych feel and blah, blah, blah. But pretty much everything in between, I could totally live without. And we're talking about, 60s, 70s, and all the way up to late 80s going into the 90s. That's quite a gap in time. But yeah, everything else in between these two albums, I could completely and totally just live without. So yeah, I don't know if there's necessarily more I can say about that. It's a huge band, but I'm just not very fond of them beyond just those two albums. So that would be one on the list. The third one that I would put in there, and this is really more of a genre type thing, maybe even more so than just these bands, but stuff like Evanescence and Linkin Park, this type of stuff typically tends to really and just totally turn me off. That whole, we want to do some rap, maybe hip hop type stuff, or maybe some melodic kind of soaring vocals, but then we also we want to be rock and roll. We want to make it hard, so we're gonna put maybe some metal riffs in there, maybe a little bit of palm muting, but mainly a bunch of this just really distorted open chord stuff. And as I start hearing that stuff over and over, and it just gets to the point where it's like another one of those, like that kind of thing. And again, I'm always open though, because are there one or two songs on this Linkin Park that I like? Yes, that's why I picked up the CD. Are there one or two songs on this? Yes, but would I do I have plans on actually going out and picking up CD or otherwise any of their other stuff? No. It's just like I don't like it. Doesn't mean you can't come through with a song that I do like, but in general, I just don't like what either of these bands do. And again, it's that hip hop melodic vocals and blah blah blah. Now, as I was saying a minute ago, always keep myself open. Actually, geez, I'm sitting right here. I can actually do that. Because I can say I don't like that hip hop stuff mixed in with the heavy guitar and all that kind of thing. But Then you go and pull out Rage Against the Machine, and I'm like, this is phenomenal. This is the creativity inside of what these guys do. As much as I don't like the lead guitarist there, I won't even say his name, but yeah, Rage Against the Machine, I think, is just one of the most creative, inventive, powerful, and they just totally make that riffing rap thing absolutely work, almost to perfection. So, as quick as I say I hate that about Linkin Park, I love it about Rage Against the Machine. Or we might go with it's kind of convenient having my metal and hard rock section over here. Another good example would be actually probably these two albums. In This Moment, which is one of my favorite metal bands, at least until the point that Brink left, or the band split up from the original lineup. But yeah, In This Moment, absolutely fantastic. And when you listen to like my favorite song off of this album, which is Mechanical Love, it's total, I wouldn't say melodic, but like harmonizing vocals over big open guitar riffs. The very thing I was saying I don't like about Evanescence, I love about this album. And the exact same thing here. The song The Road, same thing. Those melodic type of vocals over big open guitar riffs, and I love it. So just always willing to keep a very open mind, but in general, that whole genre, I could definitely do without. I easily could. I think about other bands like Papa Roach, another good example. Last Resort, is that kind of a catchy song that I liked? Yes. Do I have that CD? Yes. If I had to go see Papa Roach in concert and listen to 20 of their songs in a row, you know. so, so yeah, that would be, I don't know if that's one or a band. It's more so of a genre type of style that I have on the list. All right, so let's go into the number 2 and number 1 on my list. Number 2, bands that the VC really, really love. And I'm not going to say I don't hate these two bands by any means, because I actually have stuff by them. But the better way to put it is the level that the VC in general loves these bands and the degree to where I love them are just worlds and worlds apart. So that's more so where this thought process is coming from. And number 2 on that list is going to be the Beach Boys. And someone else actually pulled them out as an answer as well. But the Beach Boys, I mean, legendary, yes. Classic, yes. What they did in the time that they were about, I mean, you can't deny it. But quite frankly, if the world never had to have a single Beach Boys song, it'd be perfectly fine with me. This is just I have this as kind of a greatest hits type of thing. There's a couple of songs here and there that I do like by them, but I can't sit and listen to a Beach Boys album from front to back, and I don't think they were as great as a lot of people think they were. Again, just kind of my opinion there. But there's other things too that kind of rub me wrong about the band in general, and I think as hard as I try to keep separate, just really listening and basing everything off of the music, sometimes it can be very hard to separate myself from how I feel about the actual individual artist. There's very few artists that can kind of break through and actually make those two come together, and the Beach Boys is kind of one of them. The Surfing USA, the way they ripped off Chuck Berry on that, I mean, there's been sampling and stuff like that that's been done throughout the history of music. I mean, Lord knows, especially today, it's freaking everywhere. Even back then it was. But just something about that one, I don't know what it is, but that just rubbed me so wrong, and I don't know why. Maybe it's because of what was happening to Chuck at the time, and the fact that they took his song note for note and turned themselves into superstars. And I don't know, maybe I need to see a psychologist about that and really dive in and figure out why that bothers me as much as it does. And not to mention when they got inducted, I can't remember what's his name. I don't remember his name now, but if you go back and watch that, when he just gets up there and starts talking all this trash, and he said something to the effect of how they were as big or bigger than the Beatles or something like that. I mean, it was just like something I was going like, what? It's like the nerve of anyone to say or even anywhere near the size or scope of the Beatles is absolutely ridiculous. But but yeah, so Beach Boys is definitely number 2 on my list. Now, number 1, again, distance between how most people in the VC feel about them and how I feel about them. Not a hate thing, but how that distance. Number 1 on my list. I don't think there's any greater distance between other people's love and my level of love for the Beatles. And that's my number 1 for the list. Now, I hope you okay? I think me and Mr. Mayo just fell over in his chair over there, so I just want to make sure he was okay. I think he's all right. He just made him faint there for a second, but it'll be okay, man. I'm not, I'm not bashing the Beatles at all. I mean, obviously, I like them, or I wouldn't have gone out and bought the studio box set. I mean, I'm not wealthy to the means where I can go out and buy this just for the sake of saying I have it, and wouldn't buy that anyway. So I like the Beatles. I have plenty of their albums, CD box sets, the whole nine. I have the Japanese pressing of their greatest hits and all of that good stuff. But again, when you look at just the level that most people in the VC put the Beatles on, like just the level that they're on for me just does not come anywhere near that. Now, just like I was saying about the Beach Boys a minute ago, if you're asking me like factually about the Beatles, I'm the first person to say biggest band that rock and roll has ever seen, not without question, one of the biggest influences in the history of rock and roll. A lot of things wouldn't have been the way they were if it was not for the Beatles. I mean, you cannot get around denying that fact. That's just pure fact, no matter how you feel about the music. But when it comes to the music, again, you have to interpret this from a standpoint of when these sound waves hit my ears emotionally, what does it do to me, make me feel? How do I connect with it and all of that? It's very average. It's just like any other band that had a few good tracks and I listen to every now and then when I get the urge. I mean, that's the level that the Beatles are for me, where with most people, they're, gods, and I have to have every single pressing of every single album and every rarity and every bootleg and blah, blah, blah. That's just not me. So, in the spirit of the question, this is what I would have to pick. Now, if you really wanted to get a little more specific here, where I could say something I just really do not like, and even then, it's still almost not as much as other people, but I think this takes the gap even further, is when it comes to this album. People rant and rave over and over, up and down, all over the place about the White Album. I'm sorry. If this album never existed, I'd be perfectly fine. That's just the way I feel about it. This is by far not my favorite Beatles album in any way, shape, or form. Like I said, one of the ones I could definitely kind of do without. And it's just an album that, and please don't say, because I've heard this a number of times over the years, actually, you just haven't listened to it. You just need to go back and have you heard? Yes, I've heard it. I didn't buy it and look at it and go, it doesn't feel good. I've had it on vinyl before, and I've had a couple copies, and I've sold them. This is the second CD I have. I had a 2 CD box set, and I sold it when I got this box set. So yes, I've had the album. I've listened to it. Matter of fact, maybe I've tried to give this more attention than most Beatles albums, because this is the one that everyone seems to really get something from. And so my attitude oftentimes is not like, it's not like a, I know good music and blah, blah, blah. It's just the opposite. When I hear people rant and raving about something, most of the time my attitude is, what am I missing? Because if there's something that's connecting with that many people, there's something in there. And I know I have the capability of really being able to be open to a lot of different things music-wise. Let me just kind of sit back and really take that in and maybe get a feel for what I'm missing or what I'm not sensing. And that's what I've done with the White Album, because of that exact reason. And it's just at the end of the day, I've been through it a number of times, and there's a song here that's okay, a song here that's okay. Would this by any means be the first album I return to on my rotation list? No, it's just not on that level. So there's my response. And again, I know I'm gonna hear a lot of stuff from the Beatles fans out there, because like you say anything negative about the Beatles, boy, and it just, ooh, it brings them out of the woodwork. But but I think vast majority of you understand kind of what I'm saying there. So anyway, thanks so much, guys, for kind of checking out the vid. Again, these have been really great videos. So if you haven't seen other people's response to this thread, make sure you go back and kind of check those out too, because it's been really informative. Let's put it that way. Really neat to see the other side, or another side of some VC members that we just haven't really had a chance to talk about. So, all right, take care, guys, and we will talk to you soon.